Well, I was really excited to have you on also to promote your new show. It's called Voices of the Herbal Elders, if I'm getting that correct. We actually listened to the David Winston episode on the drive here, of course. Yeah, it was awesome. But before we get into that, during your keynote, you brought up a story that reflected why we should be honoring our elders, or at least a display of someone honoring the elders. Can you tell the HerbRally audience the story about the rental car situation?
Yeah, it's a marvelous story. So we were just talking about, recognizing that in every community there are elders, and the ones that I was showing on my slideshow were oftentimes really well known. And those are very easy to honor. You kind of go up to them and like, oh, I love what you're doing. But it's those that are kind of forgotten, and they have incredible stories. And oftentimes they're not as willing or open to telling them, so you have to entice them out. And it can be just a wonderful conversation that happens. So this story is a little bit like that.
Yes.
So we had traveled all day since about 6:30 in the morning to get here because of delays and big storms. And when we finally get to Detroit, it's around 9 now. So we've been on the road since 6:30 in the morning.
Yes.
And there's like at least a 2-hour, I'm not exaggerating, wait to get to the rental cars. And so Helen was in there. So I was outside, and there was this 95-year-old man who was a little blind and a little deaf. And he had a twinkle in those eyes that couldn't see out, but his eyes were still twinkling to the world, right? So I was engaged in this wonderful conversation with him, just having such a good time. In the meantime, my blessed Helen is my dear friend. She's standing in that line, and she tells me this story. It's growing like molasses, right? And there's a younger man. He's maybe in his 40s, maybe 45. He's in the military, by the way, and he's almost up to the front of the line. And he happens to glance back, and way at the back is this really elderly woman. Without a fuss, without making any to-do, he excuses himself, he walks up and gets this elderly woman and brings her up to his spot, and then walks back to that place in the back of the line. He's not trying to call any attention. Everybody sees it, and they give him an enormous round of applause. And I think at that moment, everybody there wishes, why hadn't they thought of that, right? And then people there in kindness said, but you can come up and stand where you were. He said, no, I don't need to. No. And that's the kind of respect I think what we need to have for these people who have had the courage and, to continue to be here on this earth, really, and that we need to honor them. We don't do that very much in our communities at all. So in the herbal community, I think we do it really beautifully.
Absolutely.
But I think overall what we see happens with older people is they get oftentimes shipped off to rest homes.
Sure. Yeah, what a beautiful illustration right before you show up to the herb conference, where this is going to be the thesis of your keynote.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a wonderful story. So